Good day, everybody. Rob here at WesternPacificWeather.com. It is currently the 14th of November, 2010, right approximately 0900 Japan Standard Time. That's about 00 Zulu for those of you worldwide. And today we're really watching everything that transpired from yesterday that we were talking about. Basically, this tropical depression here that developed in the South China Sea, eventually moving towards the west here very slowly, looking at making landfall just south of Da Nang, Vietnam, right down here as a tropical depression. Not really expecting too much of its winds out of that, but there is a large amount of precipitation associated with it. And also the associated stationary front extending out here to the northeast. We've been watching the last several days. Actually, at first expected us to pick up this tropical depression. Really sheared off most of it, though. That's really the main reason why this is remaining very weak at this time. But the stationary front looks really ominous, but mainly mid to upper level clouds throughout much of Japan and the Ryukyu Islands today, with just this big broad area of precipitation just to southeast of Japan in here. But we will get back to that in a minute. First, we're going to zoom in on the tropical depression here. It's currently approximately 100 nautical miles to the southeast of Da Nang, Vietnam. Starting to see some precipitation move over the city in that area between Da Nang and Hue, Vietnam, and that area here. Right now, only reporting 10 knots of wind out of Da Nang and some light mist, mainly something you would expect with a very weak tropical depression. But this is starting to move inland, though, and likely just going to see some gusty winds by this afternoon throughout much of Vietnam. And main reason, though, this has not gained in intensity despite the warm sea surface temperature is the high amount of wind shear just to the northern periphery of the system, about 50 to 60 knots of wind shear rate in this region, and even higher farther up here, mainly associated with the polar front jet, which is really dipping down far here. But on the equatorial side, though, some really good outflow actually. You can see some banding actually forming up in this region here, and that's the main reason why it's maintaining its current intensity, vice just dissipating or strengthening, is that you have the competing forces here to the southern periphery and also to the northern periphery. Showing the microwave imagery here, showing these high cloud tops with the higher amount of precipitation, mainly in these two areas, but also just showing that the really disorganization of the system. It's exceptionally hard to tell where the center of circulation is, and actually JTWC put out a correction on their 21Z warning because apparently the center of circulation was just slightly off, and it's really hard to tell per satellite. You really have to dig into some ship obs and surface obs out here. But right here, though, showing J2WC's warning on the system, expecting landfall later in the evening now of the 14th. I know yesterday we were expecting it actually the morning of the 13th, but the system moving very, very slow. Basically, those competing forces of the equatorial and the northern periphery really just keeping it kind of bottled up right in this entire region here. And it also, good news though, is longer sits in this area and gets affected by that northerly wind shear, the weaker it's going to be at landfall. And you can kind of see that here. Maintaining this 25 to 35 knot winds, and eventually once it hits land it's just going to weaken right off and dissipate here in this region. So that's really the good news. Looking at landfall just south of Da Nang and Hue, Vietnam here, likely the morning or the afternoon of the 14th here. So landfall this afternoon, weak tropical depression over Vietnam. Now moving off to the northeast though, as we already noted, this broad area of low pressure and basically this area of cloudiness, mid to upper level clouds over Japan. We are seeing some precipitation just south of Honshu here, shown on the radar. Now this is associated with those higher cloud tops that you can see on the IR imagery, and now this drifting slowly off to the northeast here, and likely going to just clip the southern periphery of Honshu here. Might see some precipitation in the Kanto plain here, likely just some light mist. I wouldn't expect to see some really heavy rain showers in this region. Okinawa though could see some heavier rain showers with some of this banding farther to the south here, but overall this is going to drift off to northeast and not really cause too many problems for Japan. But if we look at the IR imagery, I know it does look a lot more ominous and like a big gigantic cloud basically engulfing much of Japan here. And last, showing the surface analysis from KMA here. They are showing the stationary front south of Japan here with some precipitation along the southern portion of the main islands up here to the north, and also some precip here on Ioto as well. So just an area eventually going to drift off to the northeast here, not really cause too much of a big concern up in this region. And also to note though, we still have the Siberian high up here. This is likely going to start drifting to the southeast over the next 24 to 48 hours. Really going to start seeing some winds pick up here in Okinawa out of the north here, and some cooler temperatures throughout much of Korea and Japan over the next 24 to 48 hours. Just another thing I do want to note though, as this area of low pressure right here, you can see the cold front moves off to the east and this area moves off to the northeast. This really is going to start to dig in towards the southeast as well. So just another thing we want to watch here. We're going to see some very high seas throughout this entire region and much cooler temperatures throughout much of this entire area in here. And actually, if we look at KMA's placement here in the 24 hours of this high pressure, you actually can start to see it drifting to the southeast with some northerly winds right in this region. So as we saw right prior to Typhoon Chaba, which moved up to this region, we saw a cold surge throughout this entire area. Likely going to see a similar event, basically anticyclonic winds moving around this high pressure, so some very strong northerly and colder winds moving in over Korea and Japan here. So nothing we're going to watch, but that's all for today, everybody. Thank you for listening to westernpacificweather.com. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, like always, please email them to me or post them to the right at the Facebook box or the shout box there. And as always, you can find more of this tropical depression at storm2k.org. Plenty of meteorological and meteorologists there to talk about this storm. But also, I got another question, or please, really, if you have a suggestion out there, I was thinking about buying some equipment for green screens to start working on this. Please let me know if you are watching this. Appreciate the feedback. Actually trying to audition for a TV meteorologist spot eventually coming up here in the future. So just appreciate the feedback. So let me know, and I will likely have another update by tomorrow. So thank you, everybody. Bye.